If you're in the mental health industry and want to grow your impact, your reach, and your organization, you need to be at the Mental Health Marketing Conference. This October 7th through 9th, join hundreds of marketers, executives, and clinicians for 3 powerful days of inspiration, strategy, and networking. From AI to storytelling, from branding to market strategy, you'll leave with actionable ideas, meaningful connections, and access to industry experts. It's so much more than a conference, it's a community. Visit mhmarketing.org to learn more and grab your ticket today. Attend in person in Franklin, Tennessee, just south of Nashville, or attend online and see me as one of the keynotes. And use discount Joe to get an extra 10% off any ticket. Again, that's mhmarketing.org and use promo code Joe to get an extra 10% off any ticket. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Stanoff, session number 1247. I'm Joe Stanoff, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, where we help you build a thriving private practice that you absolutely love. We talk with all sorts of different professionals here to just fill in those gaps that we never learned in grad school. I never took a single business class in all of undergrad, grad school, high school, no business classes. It's so weird because you think about so many of our careers in counseling, in social work, in nutrition, and coaches, no matter what kind of service professional you are, you got to have some basic business skills if you're running a private practice. And so never had any of those. But we've been covering some really interesting stuff over the last, this whole year has been awesome. We've had some series on mindfulness. We've had our productivity series. We've had our Brighter Brains series. We had our Future of series, like the future of trust, the future of learning. All sorts of just really interesting things. In the last several episodes, we talked about your relationship renovation. We talked with Harvard's Bob Bordone on conflict resilience and negotiating. We talked about what's changing in the brain around AI and brain-computer interfaces. We talked about Taylor Swift's genius in her strategies that with Harvard Business Review senior editor Kevin Evers. So we've been talking to a lot of really just heavy hitters that are doing some really cool stuff in the world. The power of having a podcast for me is, really, there's a lot of power to it, but like the people that you meet and that you get to connect with is just so awesome. I'm really excited because Danielle Swim, who has a podcast also, she helps people that are counselors really like build passive income in courses. We're going to be collaborating this fall on a mastermind group that's going to be a 12-week mastermind group all around podcasting. So if you're just getting started, if you have one that's kind of plateaued, if you haven't got sponsors, we do multiple six figures in sponsorships with this show, and we're going to pull back the curtain with this whole group. You can head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/membership to read all about that. It's going to redirect to Danielle's website. At the time of this recording, we don't have that landing page set up, but we do know we're going to redirect you from practiceofthepractice.com/mastermind. It's going to be 12 weeks. We're going to be meeting once a week live with you talking podcasting. You're going to get some one-on-one consulting as well as part of it, and tons of bonuses like you're going to get Podcast Launch School, our course as part of it. You're going to get access to the Practice Academy, all sorts of things. And then she's throwing some stuff into. So that's a fun collaboration. Literally this morning, at the time of this recording, we just talked about it and kind of firmed up the details. So that's going to be a really fun thing that we're doing together to just help, therapists and coaches and podcasters just grow. I'm so excited to have Dr. Megan Lyons with me. Megan is an amazing person. She's a podcaster. She has her Wellness Your Way podcast that reaches thousands each week. Also has a master's in holistic nutrition, certified in health coaching, and a doctorate of clinical nutrition, as well. MBA from Kellogg School of Management, and went to Harvard. So, Megan, you're right in there with all these other amazing guests we've had recently. Welcome to the Practice of Practice podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. It's been a fun journey, and I'm excited to talk about it today.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is I feel like when I hear wellness, I always have two emotions that just happen at the same time. One is excitement and the other is disgust because
Yeah.
I feel like the quote wellness influencers make me want to puke in my mouth for the most part.
Yes.
And when I hear that word wellness, I think about all these bros that are doing creatine and they also have their fancy cars. And it just is this like weird hustle culture sometimes. And I believe in wellness. I love going for walks. I love being in nature. I love eating relatively healthy. I love feeling good. And so it's interesting how even when I hear that word wellness and was reading it to you, I'm like both puking in my mouth and excited. So I want to just acknowledge that from the top. You said yes. How do you feel about that word wellness?
Well, I hear you absolutely on both. I, of course, since it's in the name of my podcast, I choose to align with the definition that is true wellness in my mind, which is
Yeah,
waking up feeling great most of the time, honoring your body most of the time, doing what you can to live your best life and honor the gift that you've been given, which is this body. And I totally know the pukey feeling that you got, the bros in the gym, the wellness influencers. I just don't define that as real wellness. But
yeah,
just like anything, it's hard to differentiate yourself out there. It's hard to explain what you mean without using the word wellness. So I feel the pull on both sides from you.
yeah. Well, it's so interesting. Even like so this past spring, my partner Claire and I we went to Guadeloupe, which is a French island down in the
Wow.
Caribbean, and to just see like this is an island, so they're shipping things in from all over the world, and to just see how quality cheeses, quality meat, quality vegetables, quality like everything, from a non-US, type of lens is good quality just as their standard. I guess if we just start with, what in the US do we often get wrong that doesn't support wellness? Now that could be and is a whole podcast. I mean, you cover this stuff all the time, but what are a handful of the things that just as a nation when it comes to wellness, we often just get wrong?
I honestly think that, well, I've never been to Guadeloupe. The places in the world that have a more simplistic style of living, a more simplistic food supply, a more simplistic way of approaching health, that is the answer. Wellness, in a way, is stripping back modern lifestyle that's making us less healthy. And we as Americans were wired for constant, instant gratification, stimulation, more, better technology, all of this. I'm not at all opposed to technology. Better living through science is cool. But so often, the supplements that we're taking, the engineered foods, the food products, all of this kind of stuff is actually taking us away from my definition of real health. So I do think our instant gratification craving is getting us further away from wellness, and it's what we have wrong in the US.
Mm. Now, you mentioned supplements. Now, I know that the whole supplement industry, there's a lot that goes into that too.
Mhm.
I personally take some supplements like my vitamin D. My medical doctor had said, based on living in northern Michigan and it being cold and wintry and all that, would probably be a
Yes.
good thing. And I'm not asking you to tell me what to take. I know you're not my doctor, but
Right.
are there supplements that in general you say, yeah, if someone wants to take a general vitamin, sure, take that. Or is it we should really find our nutrition in our foods? Like, how do you think through kind of vitamins, nutrition, and like what we're choosing to put into our bodies?
In a quote perfect world, which I am not confident that exists, but in that perfect world, we wouldn't need any supplements. I do believe that nature has provided us exactly what we need, and hundreds of years ago we could potentially get it from food. And that didn't account for the constant on nature of being overly stressed, cramming in so much productivity into the day, having our food supply depleted of nutrients because of farming practices, shipping, all of this kind of stuff. So I believe that most people today actually would feel better with some supplements and improve their long-term health. The problem is, or the gift is, depending on how you want to look at it. Let's say I'm running a functional panel on a client that comes in. I run some really deep lab testing, primarily through blood, but sometimes stool, saliva, whatever urine. We can do all kinds of different things. But let's say we're doing a functional panel and we see that someone is deficient in zinc and vitamin D, to use your example. Well, then they might take that without an adequate recommendation, and they might just go to you name your pharmacy or health food store or whatever, and there are 28 bottles of zinc up there, and they don't know if picolinate or whatever kind of format of zinc is best for them. They don't know the dosage, and so most people without the gift of having a more guided practitioner experience, most people are just guessing. And unfortunately, the supplement industry is not regulated very much. And when we do independent lab testing, all kinds of stuff is coming up in the supplements, both smaller and higher doses of the marketed ingredient, as well as some ingredients that are not marketed on there. So it just gets to be kind of a slippery slope if you're guessing on your own. If you do have the gift of working with a practitioner who will guide you on this specific dosage, this brand has been tested, this is what to look for, then absolutely. I personally take supplements and I'm aware, for example, magnesium is one of my favorite supplements. I call it my desert island supplement because if I could only take one, it would be magnesium. It just makes me feel so much better. But I'm fully aware that my body is needing and craving more magnesium because of multiple things. One is I am using magnesium to help me manage my stress. Is that the answer? No, the answer is probably more breaks in the day, potentially more sleep, although I've really improved on that. We're all works in progress, and I absolutely have improvements to make for my health, just like any of my clients. But I'm using magnesium as a tool there. So I kind of strayed from the point of your question, but the short answer is yes, supplements can be useful, and yes, they can be not useful.
Yeah. Now, one thing we were talking about before we started recording was just the whiplash people feel. This week do this, next week that's terrible. This week it's chocolate's great, next week chocolate's terrible. Like, how do you think through when you're podcasting or when you're working with your patients in regards to just how much to even worry about the whiplash when it comes to just all the things each week that we're told are healthy or unhealthy?
Yes, it's something that I think about so often and talk to so many other practitioners about. Before I get into the real answer, I will make a strong statement based on your thoughts that chocolate is always healthy. Chocolate's my favorite food, so I feel very strongly about that one. But of course, I'm kidding. There's different situations where I might not recommend it. Anyway, the whiplash is real, and I got my MBA before I started this business. I learned a lot about marketing tactics and all of this kind of stuff. And I, to be honest, don't use very many of those because what sells is the flashy stuff. We're all fighting for eyeballs. And at the end of the day, me standing here saying, hey, more vegetables and like a balance of macronutrients, not over or under protein, not over or under carbs, not over or under fat. They're all good. That's just not sexy. That doesn't sell as much as the people who say, oh my gosh, you have to be XYZ diet. You have to do this extreme thing that gets eyeballs. So it's something that I've grappled with. I'm very happy with the size of my practice. I run a small practice, only two other practitioners and myself. And we're very full with clients, and I'm grateful for that. But we're not going to be a practice with 5,000 practitioners ever. That's not our aspiration. And I do think if we wanted to be that, we would have to try some different things with marketing that might make me less comfortable. So I've had to settle with the idea that the right people will come to me, the people who have been through those fad approaches and fad FAD, not FAT, fad approaches and other kinds of things. And they're looking for what I believe to be the real sustainable solution. They will find me and my message will resonate with them. But I know it's easy not to do that. It's easy to fall into some of these flashier things because they get eyeballs.
Yeah. As a therapist, I can tell you from experience that having the right EHR is an absolute lifeline. I recommend using therapy notes. They make billing, scheduling, note taking, telehealth, and e-prescribe incredibly easy. Best of all, they offer live telephone support that's available 7 days a week. You don't have to take my word for it. Do your own research and see for yourself. Therapy Notes is the #1 highest rated EHR system available today, with a 4.9 out of 5 stars on trustpilot.com and on Google. All you have to do is click the link below or type promo code Joe on their website over at therapynotes.com and receive a special 2-month trial absolutely free. Again, that's therapynotes.com and use promo code Joe on the website. If you're coming from another EHR, Therapy Notes will also import your demographic data quick and easy at no cost, so you can get started right away. Trust me, don't waste any more of your time and try Therapy Notes. Just use promo code Joe at checkout. Now, I guess how do you just personally think about wellness? Like, how do you think through your own and your clients' wellness? Like, is it more long term? Is it short term? Like, what are the things that you think are probably universal to everyone that's going to help their mental health? It's going to help their physical health, all of it.
Well, I think people are motivated by very different things. And I'm sure in your work you would say the same. So if you were to open my Instagram feed and scroll through for at least 60 seconds, I guarantee you would find a 95-year-old high jumping or something like that. I am super inspired by people in their later years doing athletic feats. I don't know why, but it just really motivates me. My parents today are playing in a pickleball tournament. My dad's in the 75 to 80-year-old category, and my mom's slightly younger, but they're doing their thing, being super athletic. That's motivating to me. I want to get to that age and beyond feeling really good. For other people, it is, looking amazing in a swimsuit. And I don't think that's bad per se. I think there's more to life, but if that's motivating, that's amazing. Let's use it. For some people, it is my grandmother had breast cancer and my mom had breast cancer and I don't want to get breast cancer. And that's very motivating. But we get to find what the individual's motivation is and really work that way. At the end of the day, though, I think every single person wants to feel good today. And if we really explore that, I get people all the time who are like, oh, feel fine, feel fine, feel fine. But if we really explore it, there's room for improvement for almost everyone, whether that's digestion, energy level, sleep quality, libido, bloating, skin, pain, who knows what. Everyone wants to feel good today. So that's generally where I start, is finding where they don't feel good today and giving them some quick wins to feel better. And it is, to my point earlier, these are not sexy, but it is the simple things that really make a difference. So is someone well hydrated? There is a meme out there that makes me laugh every time I see it. It's like we're basically a complicated house plant with emotions or something. We need some sunlight and we need some water. And that's true. So if someone is not hydrated, let's start there with what's real hydration. Do you need electrolytes? How much water? Are you drinking too much coffee? All this. I genuinely believe that everyone needs some micronutrients in the form, I will say 99% of people need some micronutrients in the form of vegetables, fruits, other whole foods. There are some people that a short-term healing diet of a very restrictive composition might be useful. But in general, most people are not eating enough whole foods, fruits, vegetables, etc. Are we getting some movement in the day? Are we getting some sunlight? All that foundational stuff often gives people quick wins where they say, wow, all I did was drink more water. That's not so bad. I can totally do that. And already my afternoon energy slump is going away. Then we can get into the fancier stuff.
Mm. Yeah, it reminds me of when before I sold my counseling practice and I was working with a lot of angry teen boys. And it was like,
Mm.
well, what's their sleep? And it's like, oh, well, they play video games kind of late, and
Hmm.
they are getting like 6, 7 hours of sleep. Like, what's their diet? And it's like a ton of caffeine and sugar, and tons of screen time and lack of socialization. It's like, well, yeah, they might have ADHD or anxiety or depression or anger issues, but also like they're not really living just basic good health. Like, let's try to
Yes.
get the sleep under control first and get the screen time and the sugar and the caffeine, kind of change that up. And then let's see if there's still anger issues and if things are still pretty wild in the house. To me, I think there's so many of those simple things. What do you wish, we have mostly therapists that listen. What do you think would be healthy to have as part of someone's intake assessment? So someone comes in, they say they're having marriage issues, they say their kids having anger issues. What do you think from a wellness perspective should be on those intakes if people really wanted to have more of a wellness approach to how they're thinking about their clients?
So, to the extent that the incoming client or patient is trustworthy of the practitioner and will give an accurate assessment, I honestly think a day in the life of a normal dietary intake is extremely helpful. I don't ask people to track every calorie, to give me, a week's worth of food log or anything, but just asking them on a normal day, what might you eat and drink on a normal day gives so much information. So, if they are someone who's dealing with more impulsivity or mood swings, something like that, and they're trying, especially I'll say women in their 40s ish, and they're trying to do fasting for an extended period of time, well, they might just have blood sugar instability. Their body might not be yet up to speed enough to do fasting, and with various hormonal changes, thyroid instability, things like that, it's something that I think not traditionally, but for the most part, women in their kind of midlife years, myself included, can tend to overfast for our mental health. Then for more like ADHD type symptoms, difficulty concentrating, things like that, I'm always looking for over reliance on sugar, caffeine, food colorings and additives, things like that. If it is someone who is potentially having mood disturbances, I would obviously look for alcohol, which I'm sure your practitioners listening already do, but also an over reliance on processed food. When we're eating too much processed food, if the day in the life says something like, okay, I grab a protein bar for breakfast and then I get uh, fast food, or even like not fast food, but I pick up a sandwich and chips or something from the local deli, and then maybe I eat a candy bar for lunch. Well, we start exploring that and we realize there's not a lot of real nutrition coming in there. They're likely under on protein, and protein is foundational for a lot of neurotransmitter foundation, etc. They're likely not getting in those micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, all of that. And you can tell also if they're snacking more than they're eating meals, if they even express shame and when they're writing that down, do they have some kind of uncomfortable emotional relationship with food? I learned so much just from that one day in the life of eating, asking them to write that down.
I love that. When you think about maybe like kids in particular,
Hmm.
I have a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old, and I feel like I try to find that balance between, having a lot of like cut up carrots or, like fresh fruits and then also the occasional like allowing them to have goldfish or Cheez-Its or things that are definitely not healthy, but my mom, when I was a kid, was so on the health side that it's like
Mm.
it gave too much power to snacks
Mhm.
and to things that when I was at other people's houses or as a young adult, I just like when I got to college and there was all these sugar cereals, I was like, oh my gosh, as an 18-year-old. And it's like, so I don't want them to have that power. I want them to be able to self-regulate and to see how it makes their body feel. But like,
Yes.
how do you see parents walk that tightrope of knowing that maybe their kids are too snack heavy and, maybe unhealthy, but then you also don't want to have the food shame? Like, how are you thinking through that?
I think, first of all, it is incredibly hard. So, for all the parents listening out there, you are heroes, whether your kids eat perfectly or not. You are absolutely incredible. I don't have any kids of my own. I have 8 nieces and nephews. So, I've seen all of the stages. They're currently from 1 years old to 25 years old. And so, I've seen a lot of this. And honestly, they eat very differently across the 8 of them. I will say my younger sister is an absolute role model in this area. She has a teenager and 1 and a 3-year-old. And the way that she has talked to the 1 and 3-year-old about food, I just truly can't imagine how conscious she has been about this and how much of an impact it's having on their future. So, just as you said, Joe, she presents all foods the same. She never uses the words good or bad. She never forces the green beans on them. And she never says that goldfish are terrible. It's very, very neutral with food. And so she and I and the girls will go to the park every Tuesday afternoon, and she'll bring a snack for them after. And she'll undo their little Tupperware, and sometimes, literally last week, it was just cherry tomatoes in the Tupperware. And they were like, oh, cherry tomatoes, that's fun. And then sometimes it's cookies. And they're like, oh, cookies, that's fun. But it's just very neutral. And whatever she gives them, that's what's available. There's not a lot of discussion back and forth. Now, as they get older, is that going to be harder? Of course it is. So, what I would advise parents listening is talk to the kids as they get old enough to actually have a conversation about this, about what the purpose of food is, what different foods make them feel like. Okay, do you notice that you get a little more irritated after this food? Do you notice you're hungrier after this food? Does your tummy hurt after this food? For kids in those, say, 4 to 7-year-old ranges, they can actually start to respond to this stuff. And then as they get even older than that, talk to them about the consequences, not making it seem bad, but say to them, hey, this is why I don't eat sugar every single day, 3 meals a day. I feel irritated. It's harder for me to concentrate at work. Do you notice that in school? I honestly think having a conversation with kids about it, kids are so much smarter than we tend to give them credit for. And they might roll their eyes and they might say, oh, that's stupid, and then walk off. And that's okay. They hear it. They really do. So communicate. Don't put pressure on yourself to have this perfect diet, because that does not exist. But if they are exposed to healthy foods, a lot of research shows that their taste buds are more accommodating to those foods later in life. So exposure is super, super critical, and just do your best.
Mm. I remember hearing a study about women that drank carrot juice as when they were pregnant, as like the taste buds were developing, and how like then babies like the taste of carrot juice more, even
Yes.
just from that. And so it's like it's interesting how I mean, there's kids all over the world that eat all sorts of stuff. Like, there's kids that are raised on sushi, and it's like,
Hmm.
so this idea that like my kids just won't eat these things. I think that idea of just limiting some of the choices. And it's interesting, even my parents, my dad's a psychologist, and he said that he noticed that when he makes a smorgasbord for the kids and just like chops up a bunch of fruits and vegetables, that they'll like pick at it and eat more than if he just like gives them a whole apple or puts like a whole apple out there. It's like if they have some choice
Yes.
around it, they just make better choices.
I love that idea. What's getting popular these days, I think probably due to social media, but this is a great use for it, is getting one of those little muffin tin, like mini muffin
Mm,
tins, and then you put different things in each one. So put almonds and olives and grapes and cucumbers and whatever, and just leave it out, as you said, like a smorgasbord. Kids find it super, super fun, and they will most likely get some healthy food in them.
yeah, when I think about my 10-year-old, she's definitely the one that's a little bit tougher. I have to just think about her diet on like a monthly scale, not on a daily,
Hmm.
because it's like, sometimes she gets super into edamame and it's like 3 days of edamame and then it's like all of a sudden that's not the case. They'll tear through 5 or 10 bananas in just a couple days, and then the next week I'll buy bananas and we'll have to make banana bread. But it's like if
Yeah.
I can think about it as okay, she is getting a variety of nutrients. It's just like kind of goes through these weird phases of wanting certain things more than others.
And I actually think that's amazing. Kids' bodies really will demand what they need. And I can only imagine it's incredibly hard if your child doesn't eat dinner one night or something like that. I know there's a lot of fear over will they starve? Is this stunting their growth? But really, they won't. Of course, if it's a repeated issue, if the kid's not eating dinner for weeks or certainly months on end, like get some attention. But if a kid skips one meal or only eats edamame for a day or whatever, the kid will be totally fine. And like you said, that nutrient variety and density over a longer period of time may even be how ancestrally our bodies are adapted. So if you think about, 500 years ago, did we have a perfectly balanced meal of all kinds of different composition every single meal? No. If
Yeah, and
we
even
hunted a
seasons.
whatever, we would eat that. And then if berries were on the tree, we would eat tons of those. And that's okay.
Such great points. The last question I always ask is if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
I am guessing this has been said before in your 1246 previous episodes, but I think it's the truest advice that I can give, and the one that I remind myself always is gauge yourself and your enthusiasm for your job based on the great patient encounters and not the challenging ones. None of us, no matter what our field is, can be perfect in every interaction. Of course, that doesn't exist. And we can't change every single person out there. I would say we can't change anyone. We can give them information and motivation and strategies to make the change, but we can't do that for every single person. So, just like I'm sure has been said, I keep a folder in my email of all of the what I call testimonials or success stories or whatever. And if it's a tough patient interaction, I'll just go there and remind myself I'm doing my best. I can't be everything to everyone, but at the end of the day, my heart and soul is in this, and that really matters.
Mm, so awesome. If people want to connect with you, where should we send them?
Everything is over at thelyonsshare.org. So it's Lyons share.org. There's my social media, podcast, info about me, everything you need right up there.
Oh, so awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Joe.
That question about what do you wish was on the intake is one that I've really been enjoying lately as we've been interviewing all sorts of different people, because it's like we kind of have our just pure mental health hat on, but there's so many other areas that, as we talk about just a variety of therapeutic topics, it's just so important to make sure that we're thinking in a holistic way that incorporates all the different aspects of what it means to be human. So I hope you take some of this episode and go apply it in your practice. We also couldn't do this show without amazing sponsors like Therapy Notes. Therapy Notes is the best electronic health records out there. They will help you switch over from your current EHR. They also give you 2 months for free or just money off if you use promo code Joe at checkout. They are phenomenal. They help with automated billing. It's going to make it easier to outsource your billing. So many reasons to switch to Therapy Notes. Just head on over to therapynotes.com, read about it, and at checkout, just use promo code Joe. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Don't forget to apply for that mastermind for starting and growing a podcast over at practiceofthepractice.com/mastermind. As well, thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music. And this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.